right now. Larry, are you ready for the 2023 49er regular season awards?
Yes. Wait a second, Damon. Hold on.
Yes. Ooh.
I've got something I want to add to that. Hold on.
Oh, my God. Well, I can't wait to see Like Price Waterhouse, I have already selected all the winners and put them in an envelope. I actually did this segment on my show. So, Larry, I have all my answers. I'm not going to be changing my answers to fit your answers. Let's see how many of your answers align with my answers, how similarly we think about this, how differently we think about this. Are you ready, sir?
I absolutely am ready.
I'm going to try to do a better job hosting this segment than Joe Coy did the Golden Globes. Are we ready? Here we go. Yes. Larry, our first award, it's up to you to decide who it goes to. The category is Most Valuable Brock. Who do you think is the most valuable Brock on the San Francisco 49ers? Basically, we had to give you-know-who his own category because he would have won basically all the rest of them. So, most valuable Brock, which are you going with?
Is there a second?
There's only one, baby.
I'm going with Brock Purdy.
Absolutely. I mean, a remarkable story, a rise from last pick in the draft, a legitimate MVP candidate. All good things flow through Brock, and we just needed to get him up front because he could be he's your team MVP. He's your Len Eschmont Award winner in terms of inspiration. He is, I think, maybe the media's choice for most cooperative 49er as well. Like, Brock has just done an incredible job with any and all aspects of being a professional quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, which is harder than most professional quarterbacks have it. I mean, are you a center fielder or are you a center fielder for the New York Yankees? Are you a shortstop or are you a shortstop for the New York Yankees? Are you a quarterback or are you a quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers? Because these things are not created equal. This man has risen and met every standard that could be applied to the most scrutinized position in maybe all sports.
The guy's been incredible, absolutely incredible. And, what can you say? He's fantastic. He is absolutely him. And people who doubted this guy, and I do get it because you didn't get a chance to meet him. But if you met this guy, you would say, absolutely, you're not surprised. By the way, the All-Pro team is out as well. We can play with that when we're done with this.
Our next award, Larry, and this is how you want to interpret it to decide whom to give it to. Who is your greatest difference maker? And we're taking Brock off the board for the rest of these categories. He's already won Most Valuable Brock, so he's eliminated from any and all consideration going forward. Greatest difference maker on the 2023 Niners regular season was?
It has to be Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey had an amazing year. And from minicamp on, he was the 49er player that shined brightest. He showed in minicamp that he was going to play at a Jerry Rice type level. And he stood out on a field of great players. He stood out as the greatest of great players with his effort and his athleticism. So Christian McCaffrey, without a doubt.
I also selected Christian McCaffrey, and I'll buttress it with this. The 49ers were 12-4 in games that he played this season. He sat the Rams game, so he doesn't get credited for the loss in that. And in 2023, he made his debut against the Chiefs, caught a loss in his debut. Then the Niners won 10 in a row. His regular season record with the Niners when he plays, the Niners are 22-5. If you add the postseason to his tally, the 49ers are 24-6 since adding Christian McCaffrey. So if that's not a difference maker, I do not know what would be. Greatest individual performance. in any one particular game. Larry, do you have a standout greatest individual performance of the 49ers this year? This is a harder category for you to just fill out mentally without.
Does everybody have to only get one? So is McCaffrey and Purdy gone now?
I will tell you that Christian McCaffrey is also the recipient of my greatest individual performance, and I chose Sunday, October 1st, where he had the 4 total touchdowns, 100 yards rushing, 71 yards receiving, 4 total touchdowns against the Arizona Cardinals, who he scored 7 of his 21 touchdowns against this season. So his first game against the Cardinals was a straight-up video game.
Debo had one crazy game. Was it the Eagle game?
Where he scored a great game against the Eagles. Yes, he did.
Yeah, I might go with Debo against the Eagles. Just when you think of how big that was, in hindsight, I mean, that tunnel screen where he ran diagonally through the defense, even that was a great play by Christian to freeze the linebacker Ellis with the fake. But Debo against the Eagles. I'll go Debo against the Eagles.
Best new guy award, not necessarily rookie. Best new guy, wasn't on the team the year before, is this year. I gave it to Javon Hargrave. Where are you going?
Wow. Let me think about that for a second. Best new guy. Well, there haven't been a lot of new guys.
Right.
I mean,
it's not a long list to choose from.
Yeah. Javon Hargrave was the premier offseason acquisition for sure. But I'm going to go with a sleeper pick because I really think this was a very, very significant addition. I'm going to go with Big John Feliciano, who has played outstanding at guard for the 49ers in some games. I mean, he is talk about a guy who just nobody talked about. Talk about a move that nobody mentioned. Big John Feliciano has been really, really good at times at either guard spot, mostly right guard. And they needed him badly because Burford struggled this year and didn't develop as quickly as I thought he would. I'm going to say Big John Feliciano.
I was going to go with Feliciano too before I settled on Hargrave, who I just think did a great job with his 7 sacks and filling in for a hurt at the end of the year, Eric Armstead. Chase Young could have been on the board, but I don't know if he's done enough. He's represented more of an idea than he has like actual big impact on any game. Jair Brown might have been a candidate, but I don't think he got enough snaps on his body. And unfortunately, excuse me, Ronnie Bell is just not the guy to choose here. So,
well, we're missing the guy who actually probably is the best new guy, and that's Steve Wilkes. Steve Wilkes was, unlike most people who say, "Hey, come here and run your system." The Niners said, "Come here and run our system," and then he said, "Okay, I will." And then they said, "Well, you know what? Don't get comfortable where you're comfortable. You get comfortable where we're comfortable." And then he came down out of the booth and onto the sideline, and I think he's been a really good addition. So it would be, for me, it would be Feliciano 1, Steve Wilkes 1A.
Okay, you're going to have to put your thinking cap on too for this next category, Larry, because it's a little bit more in the abstract. It depends on who you concentrate on and who gets lost in your shuffle. Who is your winner of the Never Take That Guy for Granted award? Because there have been some outstanding seasons that just get lost in the shuffle of conversation because there's so many outstanding individual and collective seasons of success to talk about on the 49ers. But who do you have in the Never Take That Guy for Granted award category? I came up with 2 names. This is the only time I cheated and I split an award between 2 guys. But who do you think of when you think never take that guy for granted? We could talk about the Niners for probably 20 minutes, not bring up his name, but he's a key cog, full stop.
Well, definitely the first name that comes to mind is Jawan Jennings, but I'm not going that direction. I'm going to go with Dre Greenlaw, who's been a great player in the NFL and has never, ever gotten Pro Bowl consideration. And if let's just go, right out of the chute, 6 tackles in week 1 against Pittsburgh, 11 tackles against the Rams, 10 against Arizona, 10 against the Vikings, never fewer than like 8 from that point on, 12 against the Ravens, 10 last week against Washington, dinged up. Just an incredible year for Dre Greenlaw. This guy is absolutely an amazing football player. And he gets overshadowed by Fred Warner, and Warner's, incredible as well. But I mean, these guys are closer than people realize as far as, what their overall contribution is. Dre Greenlaw hits like a truck. He runs 4.5. The Niners ask their linebackers to control that entire second level. It's often kind of like a 5-2 look that they give you. And those two are Greenlaw and Warner. And Warner gets all the love and all the accolades. And I'm just going to say, Dre Greenlaw, shout out to Dre.
I really do think that he is the Navarro Bowman to Fred Warner's Patrick Willis. I mean, it's an incredible linebacker duo because of how good Greenlaw is and how outstanding Warner is as well. But yeah, they complement each other perfectly. That is an outstanding choice, Larry. A lot of people on the text line are saying, what about Trent? Trent. To me, like, Trent is not even in the category of taken for granted. Who is taking Trent Williams for granted? The guy is he's the moon, he's the sun, he's the stars for that offensive line. There's no
best
doubt.
Player on the team. I mean, he's not somebody you take for. What team do you take? Is the best player on your team is never taken for granted,
right?
Ever.
I had 2 guys that just fit my definition of we probably take them for granted. One being Mooney Ward, because, even though he's going to the Pro Bowl this year, none of the secondary is allowed to operate as it operates without Mooney Ward, without a legit number 1 corner who can take on all the big boys and the bad checks that nobody else wants. Lenore never would have found his, water level on this defense. You don't get to Ambry Thomas on this defense. You don't get Steve Wilkes doesn't get to operate the defense the way that he wants to without a guy like Javarius Ward, who is just spectacular this year. And the other guy, Larry, I'm going with George Kittle. I feel like George Kittle, for a guy who gets a ton of attention and camera time, is still almost hidden in plain sight. He had a sneaky 65 catch, 1,000 yard season. When we sit around and talk about the great performances, George Kittle's name's not going to come up once, and it should. But he does get lost in the sauce because he is so good. There are better blocking tight ends maybe in football who are just blocking tight ends. I couldn't name them. Charlie Werner is a hell of a blocking tight end. He's not as good as Kittle, but there are great blocking tight ends out there. There are probably better receiving tight ends than George Kittle, but when you package them all into the position, I still think that he is the prototype. He is the best all things tight end in football. And he deserves it. He's in a tight end class all by himself. No one fills the entire role of tight end better than George Kittle. Rookie of the year. Again, a very short list to choose from. Larry, I don't want to steer your decision making. Without reservation, I go with Jake Moody. I know he's a little bit of a persona non grata this past week, but Jake Moody went 21-25, missed 4 field goals all year, only missed 1 point after touchdown after setting the rookie record. Jake Moody, even though he has absolutely contributed to the loss column at least twice, has had a really good rookie year for a kicker. Full stop.
I'm going Jair Brown. I mean, Jair Brown, it's really hard to step in at safety. This guy, Fafanga went down. Gibson at times has been hurt. Jair Brown, there's nothing that he can't do and do well. He's got great ball skills and coverage down the field. He's like another linebacker in the box. His enthusiasm and for the game is just awesome. And look at the production. I mean, the guy stepped in, and he gives you 5-6 tackles in almost every game. He's been good. He's got a couple of interceptions. He's made some big plays. So I'm going to say Jair Brown.
By the way, look at how difficult it is to win any postseason award. We've given out a lot that could be interpreted in a whole bunch of different ways. We haven't even gotten to the name Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk had a spectacular year, could have been a runaway winner and maybe more than one of these categories, but that's how hard it is to win. Our final category, Larry, this is maybe the toughest to decipher too. Who is your 2023 most improved player? And remember, you still cannot pick Brock Purdy, so it's got to come from somewhere else. Who is the most improved 49ers player? I have two runner-ups and then absolutely my winner. Before I share mine, I'd like to hear yours.
Most improved 49er. I'm going to go with a guy who I absolutely know is the correct answer. I'm going to go with Deommodore Lenoir. Deommodore Lenoir has been, this guy, I talked to him in training camp. I said, Demo, man, it looks like you look a little lighter than last year. And he's like, actually I've put on weight. And I said, really? That's amazing, because you look totally different. And he spent his off season at the Mamba Institute down in Southern California. And this kid just badly wants it. And he repositioned his body. He lost some fat. He gained some muscle. And he showed up this year as a guy who was ready to play full-time on the corner and to be a hitter. He's not just a cover guy. This guy can cover you. He's competitive. You saw that night hit that he had on the Eagle running back in the fourth quarter of the Eagle game. Demo Lenoir has emerged. He does something that's amazing. He can play in the slot and then bounce out to the boundary and then bounce back to the slot and play both spots equally well. They're totally different, especially in the run game. In the run game, the slot corner is basically like a linebacker in the box. And this guy is physical, and he's tough, and he's fast, and he's incredibly improved. So I'm going to say Demo.
I think it's a fine choice. Fine choice. I won't argue with it at all. My two runner-ups. In third place, I have Deebo Samuel. He said he'd never have a year like 2022 again, and his 2023 was a lot better. To me, that's improved. And for the 49ers to be at their most dangerous, Deebo is right in the center of those game plans in those games. So I'm going with Deebo as a third runner-up. Second runner-up, Colton McKivitz. Remember, the right side of that offensive line was supposed to be the reason why this year would stop short of its full goals. I think that he plays next to the weakest spot on the team, which is right guard, and he has done more than appoint himself well at right tackle. He had at least the equivalent of, if not better than Mike McGlinchey. I'm giving Colton McKivitz, who handled that right tackle job better than I think anybody thought he would, certainly based on, everything we heard coming out of training camp. So I'm going to go with McKivitz as my first runner-up, but my winner from the same group that Lenoir comes from, I'm going to go with Ambry Thomas, because I think that this is the year he turned himself into a real NFL player and a real starting caliber corner who can run with anyone. He's big enough to tackle anybody. I thought it was his addition taking over for Oliver right after that bye week, which really changed the season arc of this defense. And again, Lenoir is right in that conversation too. I'm not surprised that both of us took a young corner, and I do think that young corner play has been the key of the Niners being allowed to be who they've been. I mean, without these young guys, without that young group stepping up, none of this is happening. So Steve Wilks gets an awful lot of credit for that. And remember, Steve Wilks began this year kind of on the outs with a lot of Niners fans. He has turned his reputation around to the point where he might be most improved based on where the year started and where it finishes with Steve Wilks and his group. And each of us took a player from his group of young secondary players. And there you go. There are your 49ers postseason awards. Is there any category that you would like to illuminate, Larry? Is there any name that you feel like we haven't done our jobs correctly unless we, in a season recap, talk about this guy right here, right now? Again, we kind of already mentioned Brandon Ayuk, who's been spectacular all year. Did we leave anyone else out?
Yeah, I do think we left out not we covered almost everybody. We covered almost everybody, but as far as guys that were, really impactful that we left out. I think we left out two that we have to mention here, and that is the forgotten guys, the guys that are damn good and nobody talks about them ever. And I'm going to say George Odom on special teams. Now he's coming back this week. Hopefully, they opened his window and there's a chance they'll activate him. George Odom is a Pro Bowl special teamer, and this guy just absolutely makes play after play after play on coverage. He's really, really good. They invested the money to go get a top tier special teamer, and that's exactly what George is. He's a tone setter, and to me, tone setter is like the highest compliment I can pay anybody on a football field. Is that, man, these guys set the tone. George Odom is one of those guys. Great guy. Go check out my YouTube interviews of him, and he's very real. He's a man of faith. He's a good dude. He's a hard hitter, and you could come and name a bunch of guys, and people would never name him. So I'm going to say George Odom. And the other guy that I think is really looked over and needs to be recognized is Big Aaron Banks at left guard. He's sitting there next to Trent Williams, and he's just doing his job. And it's like a really good offensive lineman is oftentimes just not noticed. And that's what Aaron Banks is. He's a really good offensive lineman. Second round pick out of Notre Dame. A lot of people thought he was a bust. He really did emerge this year as an outstanding player. He's going to be a 10-year pro. He's smart. He's tough. There's a reason the Niners run left. When they run their most successful runs, it's between Banks and Trent on the left side. So Banks is he's a Coke machine with wheels. You know what I mean? He's like that broad. And he's smart. He's tough. He's played hurt. He's battled a very painful turf toe. I talk to him almost every week, and it's like, dude, this guy, he also had a baby boy born this year, so he's had a new addition to his family, and it's like we've had a lot of fun this year talking about life, talking about family, talking about football, and he's a tough guy, but he's a Bay Area son. He's from El Cerrito. Love Aaron Banks, man, tremendous player, very, very underrated 49er.
Here's how good of a season Aaron Banks had. We didn't mention him once.
Yeah.
And that's the ultimate compliment you can give to an interior lineman. Didn't mention his name once. That's how good he was. He never stood out. He was never a problem. We didn't have to discuss him. Don't worry about that guy. He's been fantastic. The other guy whose name I just think needs to be used based on the amount of snaps that he's gotten, the amount of responsibility, and the way that he's answered the bell finally in his first healthy year in the NFL is Javon Kinlaw. Javon Kinlaw is never going to be a Pro Bowler. Javon Kinlaw no one's going to go out and buy a Kinlaw jersey. He does an awful lot of that garbage man work. He absorbs the blocks that allow other people around him to have more shine put on him. There's no way that Cleveland Farrell has the impactful year that he's had without Javon Kinlaw, because they get a lot of reps together. So I just want to put his name out there too, but it's really been an outstanding year of football from the 49ers. Their blind spots have been far and few between, and their defeats have been far and few between. We know that 3 of them came in that bunch right before the bye week, but man, that just feels like a million years ago. And it's why the expectations for this postseason are, nothing short of parade goes up Market Street.